Welcome to DrVoIP's Amazon Connect 2025 Update Part 5. And in this tutorial, we're going to configure Voicemail Express for your Amazon Connect instance. And we'll take a look at some new concepts that were not previously used. For example, we will be doing a CloudFormation template. It's going to generate some Lambda functions and it will create a module in your contact flows. So you'll get to see how a module works. So having said that, let's, in previous years, AWS had a voicemail solution. It actually had some interesting features that this Voicemail Express does not currently have. I'm sure they'll add it. But that was written in an early version of Node, and it's just been more and more difficult to maintain the code base. So they have archived it. I have still deployed it and get it working, but it's going to be a real nightmare. So if you're going to add voicemail to the Amazon Connect instance, it's recommended that you look at Voicemail Express. You're going to find that in the GitHub deposit repository under Voicemail Express Amazon Connect. And that will have a link that when you click will, given that you're logged into your AWS console, it will pop the CloudFormation filled in with the correct template. The template is going to generate some resources. So the overall architecture is that should a customer leave a voice message, Kinesis, there's a Kinesis data stream that you probably already have set up. That's useful for logs and event streams and data in general. When you use audio or video, it generates a video stream. At any rate, the voice message is going to be recorded customer side only, and then it's going to trigger a Lambda function to process it, which will put a wave in an S3 bucket. This will generate an event which causes another Lambda function to, excuse me, transcribe the Lambda, transcribe the recording, and then that will generate the transcription. It'll put that in a transcription bucket, which will also generate an event that will package things up and generate a pre-signed URL for being able to retrieve it. And at that point, it is either delivered as an email or as an Amazon Connect task. The way I'm working is to use tasks for messages that are left in queues and emails if they're left for a particular agent. And this is all done through another AWS service called Simple Email Services. So before you launch the CloudFormation template, which I will walk you through, you're going to need these pieces of information. You're going to need your Kinesis data stream, ARN, your video stream prefix, your instance alias, and ARN. They're going to ask you for a test agent and a test queue. You want to launch the stack in the same region as your instance. And make sure your S3s are in the same region. You're going to set, when we're done, it's going to generate some test flows for you to test the deployment. So you're going to attach a telephone number to that test flow. And we can test with tasks and or email delivery. The CloudFormation template is pretty straightforward. You're just, either you copied this link here and put it in the CloudFormation using when you selected existing template, or you just clicked on the link in the GitHub depository. As long as you're logged into your AWS console, it's going to generate the CloudFormation with the URL already filled in. Prerequisites, I think we've already discussed this. Some of the additional items to check are make sure you have live media streaming enabled. We've discussed that in previous video tutorials. What's going to happen is the stack is going to generate a video stream. It's going to generate 4 new Lambda functions, a couple of new S3 buckets, some new call flows, and a module. So the voicemail handler itself is going to be a module that is called from your individual contact flows. So this is your first look at how you might use a module. There are mandatory contact attributes. Some of them you were using just for the test mode. So once the test is done, you won't need them anymore. But there are mandatory attributes that have to be passed into that module. And we'll look at this in detail when we look at the actual call flows. But some of the required contact attributes are defined here. You will make a choice between using a guided task flow or just a plain task. When I'm setting this up and walking you through the actual configuration, I select both just so you can see how both look. You're going to need to create a from address, a to address for an agent and for the support. So if you're going to deliver everything as a task, you don't need these email addresses. But if you're going to deliver some as an email, for example, if you're going to send an email to a queue rather than a task, you'll need to add a tag in the actual queue. If you go to queue configurations, you'll see a place where you can add a tag. You're going to set a key value of this, and a value will be the actual email address. When we're passing a contact flow is going to call the module to create the voicemail. We need to pass in these attributes. They're a must. That's what makes the module work. So you will be setting contact attributes, 4 of them, and at least passing in the mode, which is either task, guided task, or an email. And the delivery is either going to be to an agent email or to a QARN. I guess optionally to a support, a queue email. But in this, we're assuming that if you're using tasks, you're going to use a QARN. When we look at the agent interface, if we're using the advanced agent workspace for the guided tasks, guided means you get these cards. It's a card that's going to pop up and it'll have a play icon. If you're not using a guided task and just a plain task, you're not going to get this pop up. We're going ahead and creating a stack. We're going to choose an existing template. And we got this link from the GitHub repository. You could have just clicked on that create stack in the depository. It would have taken you to CloudFormation, provided you're already logged in. But I just want to show you where everything goes. So at this point, we'll continue along. Let's give this a name, and DrVoIP demo voicemail. Okay, so wants to know what, I'm in US West 2. What is your Connect instance alias? So I'm going to go back here and click on Amazon Connect. This is your instance alias. So DrVoIP demo. Next question is what is your Connect instance ARN? Once again, we'll go back here to Amazon Connect. We've selected the alias, and down here you'll see your instance ARN. Go ahead and copy that, and it needs to go here. What is the prefix for your Kinesis stream? So you'll go here to services, search for Kinesis, make sure you're in the same region, and you should find your data stream here, which here's the name of my stream. And the next question is, what is the ARN of that Kinesis stream? So let's go back here. Here's the ARN. Just go ahead and copy it. Go back here. Replace that. Okay, your CloudWatch logs have different levels. Error, just show me errors, warnings, information, and debug. You can change these at any time, but it wants to know what your standard is going to be, and let's go with info. Voicemail delivery is an Amazon Connect guided. That's the default mode. Select yes. Enable voicemail delivery as contact. Allow voicemail to be delivered to agents. Works with CCP, but we're already doing it here. But we'll go ahead and say yes as well. Email voicemail delivery is an email using simple. We're going to say yes. I want to be able to do both tasks. I want tasks for my queues and I want email for my agents. Simple storage. How long should we keep a recording of a voice message? I'm going to say 90 days. At the end of 90 days, I want to move it to Glacier. Again, these are policy decisions that you can make. Task parameters only require how long should the pre-sign, okay, it's going to create a pre-sign key, which when clicked will unencrypt the recorded message. Usually they're very time sensitive and that's going to delete. I'm going to give it 5 days. How long should the pre-sign recording be valid for? I'm going to make it for 5 days. Okay, here it's looking for a from email address. And once again, I remind you that you're only going to be able to send and receive messages to verified people while you're in the SES sandbox. So go ahead and get that defined. See the film we did for, I guess it was part 3, where we talk about email in great detail. Fallback, I'm going to give it the same address. Do you store agent emails in the email secondary? Okay, so if you look back here, depending on the type of user database you set up, for SAML, you're going to find that email is the login name. In this case, when we add a new user, we specify email address and a secondary email address. And that's what they're asking here. Where are we going to find that information? And it's in the email. In this case, it's in the email space in the user management. How long should pre-recorded URLs last? Okay, and we'll use Gandalf as our test agent. Now, this CloudFormation is going to generate the architecture, but it's also going to generate a couple of test contact flows so that you can test the voicemail application. It's looking for an agent for testing that email. Which queue will you be using for the test? So I'm going to go back here to contact flows. I'm going to, oh, I don't want contact flows, I want queues. So I'm going to go to, come on, and we're going to get the sales queue. Use that for testing, and additional queue information will show you the ARN. So let's just go ahead and copy that. That'll be our test, and he'll go here. Advanced settings will not apply to your deployment. So let's go next. And at this point, it's asking for permissions. You can assign a particular permission. It's optional. It's going to go ahead and generate an execution role to run this CloudFormation. These have to do with the way CloudFormation is going to handle any rollbacks. I'm not going to spend time on this. This is a subject for CloudFormation outside the scope of this tutorial. You can just go ahead and accept the defaults. Down here, it's basically asking you to acknowledge that you're going to spend more money. So this is going to spin up resources that will cost you pennies, but they want you to be aware that we're going to spin up some Lambda functions and some maybe some Dynamo tables and more S3 buckets. And let's go ahead. And at that point, it's giving you an opportunity to review all of this stuff. I have found it a good practice to just go ahead and copy all this. If you have to rerun the stack again, you'll have all of the information you need. You can add tasks, et cetera, and at that point, we'll go ahead and submit it, and it's going to start deploying. You'll be able to monitor the progress of the stack. It's actually going to deploy a nested stack, so you're running this CloudFormation template, but it's going to generate some more. And as you can see here, it just says we've completed this. If we go over here on the right side, you'll see that you can review everything that was created. You can look at the status, and there's a great deal of information here, but it looks like we have successfully deployed our stack. A quick note on simple email services, another AWS service in the AWS console. Once again, to do this, you're going to have permissions to log into the console. So you're going to search for simple email services. And what we're doing here is the voicemail application wants to send an email to an agent. That email address has to be verified. And you have the option of verifying entire domain or individuals, whichever you prefer. In the tutorial part 4, in which we delivered email, at that point we identified a complete domain. This time we're just going to add some users. So you'll come here to simple email services. You'll go down to identities, and you're going to create an identity. I'm going to select email rather than domains. And we said in the setup that we're going to use this for the from. And I think we said we were going to use Gandalf. As the test agent. So what's going to happen is when Gandalf goes to his Microsoft Outlook or Google, whatever he's using for email, he's going to have a verification. And when that account is verified, he just clicks on it, it'll verify, and then these verification pendings will change to verified. So let's check Dr. VoIP's email account, you'll see Amazon Web Services, email verification, blah, 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 blah. And you're just going to click here. Just click on this guy. And congratulations, you've been verified. And so if we go back here to this guy, see how long it takes to get verified. Oops, see, we're verified. Okay, we'll get this guy verified and continue. But again, what's important here is you will not be able to successfully send emails unless you have the users, in this case, your agents. So you're going to list all your agents here and get them verified. And then they'll be able to receive emails from the voicemail application. Also, you might want to move out of the sandbox into production. Again, a simple support ticket to AWS, and that's easy to accomplish. Okay, logging into the Amazon Connect portal, we go to flows. We can see that we've got 4 new flows here. 2 of these were created as test flows or samples, right? Sample basic flow for voicemail. So you're going to want to follow this model. This one is, we're going to connect this up to a phone number, and I'll walk you through this. But again, these 2 are just for testing purposes to make sure the deployment actually works. This is the guided task flow. When we configured the CloudFormation, it asked us, are we going to use the guided or are we going to use the plain vanilla? I selected both for illustration purposes, and so we have them both here. We'll probably focus in on the guided, but if you're just going to use the basic CCP, you probably just want the task flow. So the other thing that is created is that if you look here under flows, you will see that we now have a module. If you click on modules, and as I've explained, think of modules as a subroutine, right? Rather than having to write this whole call flow every time we want to use it in a particular contact flow, that contact flow can just make a call to this module. And let's take a look at the module. What you'll find is that this is basically the voicemail system, if you will. And once again, pointing out that when you call this, you must come into this with these contact attributes set. Okay, this module is going to expect that these values, like what's the mode? Are we talking about a task or an email? What's, who's this from, etc. What's the QARN? So having said that, we turn on logging, we play an initial greeting, we'll begin to record your message after the tone. When finished, hang up, blah, blah, blah. We're going to set the start flag. We're going to start streaming audio, stop streaming audio, and then ultimately the voice message is complete. There's some error handling in here. And the voicemail system itself is basically this contact flow. But if we go back to flows and look at that test flow, which we will use shortly, here's the test flow. When you call into this, here's what's going to happen. Once again, we turn on logging. We're going to set some contact attributes. Now, these contact attributes were defined in the CloudFormation, right? It asks you for a test agent, and it asks you for a test queue, and that's defined here, as well as the ARNs of the guided task flow and the plain vanilla flow. So we go ahead and set that up. The next thing that happens, it's going to play to the caller request. Press 1 to test task delivery and 2 to test guided task delivery, or press 3 to test email. So it's going to give you an opportunity to test each of those modes. Then it's going to ask you um, to test the delivery of voicemail to an agent's queue, press 1. In other words, we're going to deliver a message to the agent, or if we're going to test it to delivery to a standard queue. So this is if we're going to use voicemail. If we were pressing 2, we're just going to set the standard queue. We're going to initialize a greeting, connect to the voicemail flow, set the contact attributes that we need to pass into the module. We've discussed that before. Here's your language. Here's your the QARN. Keep in mind that the QARN is also going to define that email for the queue, right? You were supposed to add a tag to the queue so that we could get the email address for the queue. And at that point, we're going to invoke the module. So all of this is what you would normally set up if you were going to generate a voice message. So having said that, we'll probably go test this contact flow right now. Okay, you're looking at the agent workspace, and let's go ahead and test the call flow that comes with the deployment. So we're going to dial into that. Got a dialer here. This is a separate phone system, so I'm calling in. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
This is the voicemail express test flow. It allows you to quickly validate the deployment. Press 1 to test task delivery. Press 2 to test guided task delivery, or press 3 to press 1 to test delivery of voicemail to an agent's personal queue. Press 2 to test delivery to a standard queue. Connecting to the voicemail flow. We will begin to record your message after the tone. When finished, you may hang up. Your voicemail will be saved and delivered to a representative.
Okay, this is a test message, and the message was created from an external telephone call into the phone number for this tutorial, and that phone number was connected to the AWS provided contact flow that enables you to test the deployment and see if it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and end this message now. And get this out of the way. And I don't know how long it takes for the message to arrive, but we're going to just wait. Okay, so it took about 2-3 minutes to get the WAV file into the bucket and then have the other Lambda functions activate. So let's go ahead and accept this incoming. So as you can see here, this was a task, and because it's a guided view task, we get this player. Plus we also get the voice transcription here. So, okay, this is a test message, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically the message I left has been transcribed. I can also play it here. Okay, this is a test message, and the message was created. Okay, so pretty cool. Get some information here that this was a voicemail left for sales. Reference information, date, time, the queue that the call was for, show talk information, the callback number, contact ID, transcript content, all of the contact attributes like the VMX3 language and mode that we previously discussed. So that's all good. Just a reminder, if you go to queues, you have to add a task. Down here where it says tags, I meant to say tags, not tasks. Go ahead and put in here uh, a VMX3 underscore Q underscore email, and then drop in the email address of the email for this queue. So in those contact flows, you're going to pass in QARN. And if they're going to leave a voicemail for that queue, say the sales team, then it's going to go to the ARN here, additional information. This ARN will take you to, in this case, the sales queue, and it's going to see here that you need to send the email to sales@drvoip.com. And I call back in, and this time rather than checking for task, I selected I want to send an email to the queue. And here's the email, how it looks. You could see that it was sent to sales@drvoip.com. It says sales voicemail. If I click on link to it, it takes me to the pre-signed link, and we get the test. So everything seems to be working per these. Again, what we're testing is here in contact flows, and the one that we've been testing is this one here. This is AWS test flow, basic test flow to validate the voicemail. So you're going to want to do that first. And now we'll go ahead and configure our own contact flows to reflect the new voicemail capability. Okay, the remainder of this tutorial, we're going to go back into our basic configuration that we developed in parts 1, 2, and 3. And now we'll go back in there and upgrade that configuration to include voicemail. As you recall, we have a main greeting. That main greeting sets the queue hold flow, and I would remind you that the queue hold flow describes the experience the caller will have while awaiting connection to an agent. So you're sitting there in queue, you're listening to care messages, perhaps you get bailout option, press 1 for a callback or 2 to leave a message. Those are experiences that are in the queue hold flow. The main greeting also provides an IVR prompt that's going to ask 1 for sales, 2 for support. Then we set the queue ID. Previously in early versions, we transferred directly to queue, but because we want to provide additional information and checks on the availability of that queue, we no longer transfer directly to queue, but we transfer to a new contact flow called transfer to queue. In that contact flow, we set the queue hold flow yet again, but this time, since we know what the queue ID is, we're able to perhaps generate a more specific set of messages and experiences by pointing to a queue hold flow that is specific to the queue that was selected. We then check staffing, make sure that someone's working, and if they're not working, currently the configuration just transfers them to the error handler. What we're going to do now is transfer them to the voicemail system. Queue hold flow, however, has some challenges. Currently, we just loop with care messages, and if they elect to bail out and leave a message, we transfer them to an external telephone number. We're going to replace that now with a transfer to the message center or that can continue to hold. The challenge here, and you've probably learned that different contact flows enable different contact flow blocks. Not every block is available in every type of contact flow. So in a standard contact flow, you do have the ability to transfer to a flow. You do have the ability to call a module. And as you know, the voicemail runs in a module. However, in the queue hold flow type of contact flow, there is no transfer to flow, and there is definitely no transfer to a module. So we're going to address that issue as well. Okay, with this in mind, let's go configure these options in our existing uh, basic contact flow. By way of review, let's check the main greeting. Again, all of your setup, including setting the customer queue flow. Here we prompt for a queue selection, press 1 for sales, 2 for support. We check hours, after hours, route to the after hours call handler. Uh, Otherwise, we set the caller, set the queue ID and transfer to a flow. Again, we don't transfer directly to queue. We want to transfer to this flow. Transfer to flow. Now we've modified this, but I'll point out what the changes were. The most important change is when we come into this contact flow, which replaces the transfer to queue directly, we're transferring into this flow. And in the main greeting, when they selected 1 for sales, for example, we sent a contact attribute called QID. So we have the ARN of the queue. So now we need to populate all of the attributes that the voicemail system needs. As you recall, it needed VM3 underscore from, which is the customer endpoint. Typically, this is a voicemail, so it's the customer's phone number. The next thing, the language. We need to identify the queue, which is the system QRN, and we need to specify the mode, which we have set as the task flow, the guided task flow. Okay, with the setup out of the way, we check to see if anybody's working. If someone's available, boom, we send them a call, we're done. If there's nobody available, the next thing we want to check is just make sure someone's logged in and working. Maybe they're on an existing phone call. So that's why we're checking here for online. And if that's true, we go ahead, check the queue status, find the position in queue, estimate the wait time. Now, before we just did all of that and transferred them to queue. What we're doing now is to uh, get some additional customer input after we tell them they're going to be waiting for 10 minutes. We say if you'd prefer to leave a message, press 1. If they press 1, we then invoke the module. Keep in mind all of the parameters we needed for the module have been set. Also back here, when we do the check staffing and find nobody's logged in, we probably, before we just handle that as an error. Now we want to play a prompt that says something to the effect that we've experienced a system problem, because you clearly should not have been able to get into the queue if nobody was in there. So this is some kind of an error. So if it's false, we don't want to go through that process. We want to go through this process. We'll just play a message and then invoke the. We created a new queue hold flow, and it's basically the same with one key difference. We're going to still play customer care messages. We're going to continue to play music and another care message. And then after 2 minutes in queue, we pop out and offer some customer options. So if you want to continue to wait, no problem. Press 1 if you want to leave a message. In the future, we'll add press something to receive a callback from queue. But right now, we're just going to offer the option to leave a message. Now, before, in the older queue hole flow, we transferred to an external voicemail system. In this one, we're going to play a message. Please hold while we transfer you to the message center, and then we come over here and we initiate the voicemail uh, process. Now, what you should see here is that we have built out the entire voicemail module, basically cut and paste it here. And the reason for that is that in this type of contact flow, you cannot, there is no option for integrating with a module. You see, you can invoke a Lambda function, but you can't invoke a module. So that's the reason we just cut and paste this here. So at this point, we've entered this with all of the appropriate values assigned. That was done in the transfer to queue flow. And this is our new hold experience for someone waiting to be connected to an agent. So what we want to do now is go back to the transfer to flow and change the transfer to queue, excuse me, transfer to queue. This is the flow that you transfer to, but this is it. What we want to do here is where it says set the working queue, set the remaining values for the voicemail, set the customer queue flow. What we want to do now is set it to the new queue hold with voicemail option. So at this point, we have covered all of the reconfigurations necessary to provide voicemail to queues and have them show up in the agent workspace as a guided view, which contains a press to play button and the transcriptions. So I hope you have found this informative. In a future video, we'll talk about a direct dialing of extensions using this module. Thanks for viewing, and I hope you have found this informative.